Hello everyone, thank you for joining another good e-reader comparison video. On the right we have the Verse Lite by Pocketbook, and on the left we have the Kindle Basic by Amazon. This is kind of industry colloquially known as the matcha. Now if you didn't have the Kindle color, this would be a fairly plain black slab looking device, and it's very fitting in line with Amazon to just make very basic looking boring units. So I gotta give them credit for going into the color region, much like they did with the metallic jade on the Paperwhite. These are the latest offerings from both of the respective companies when it comes to this screen size. Obviously they have the color soft on here, and there's different things in the works for Pocketbook, but these are the ones that would compare with each other. They're both 6 inches, they both have front light, they both have Wi-Fi. Let's check it out, starting with the Kindle. So again, we have this beautiful color. I love it. If it was the black version, I'm glad they didn't send that to us because it is very boring. This one really does liven things up. And in a world of Amazon where everything looks very much the same, color is everything. And that's exactly what they did here on the matcha. You have a little mark on the back. We have a piano finish inlay where the smile is. Usually it says Amazon A to Z, but it doesn't say that anymore. And you have the cert stamps on the bottom. Nothing on any of the sides, and the bottom has the USB-C, status indicator light, and power button. I never really like when manufacturers put the power buttons on the bottom. Pocketbook is a little better at it, and we'll explain why, because this protrudes so much that when you put it on the table like that, it actually turns on. So you can't ever prop it up. The Verse is a little bit better because it's ever so slightly inset, so when you put it on the bottom, it actually doesn't turn on. You actually have to dig in there a little bit and push it. So they did that as a preventative measure. But overall, the Kindle, yeah, sunken screen, 6 inch, nothing too crazy there. The Verse does liven things up a little bit. Now they have these iconic 5% cutout angles there, and this is to better fit in your hand, and it actually is R&D. That is by design. They made it so that it would rest in your hand a little bit. Now, other devices of theirs have buttons at the bottom. This one does not have any buttons, but this nice kind of rubbery plastic they use is quite nice. And the back is taken from the Viva, the Gallery 3 device they had a while back. You get a horizontal Pocketbook logo, and this is user removable as well. Where's that little tab they have there? There it is. So you can actually take this panel off. We're not going to do it because it just exposes a circuit board. They don't have an SD card or anything like that, although they have devices that do require the use of taking the back off to put SD cards in. Kobo did that as well early on, but this one is USB-C on the bottom. This is a power button that has an indicator light built in, and there's nothing on any of the sides. I do like this pattern at the back. It leaves a little bit of fingerprinting, but not too bad, and overall they do really present themselves the same way. They're just e-book reading centric devices, so let's dive in. Let's get the glow lights out of the way, because ever since 2019-ish, glow lights have pretty much stabilized. They're all going to be really good. Although, on both of these units, it's very blue. This is almost more greenish on the color wheel, and this is more purplish. And unfortunately, that's unavoidable because they don't have any way to balance that. They don't have any warm lighting on these lower end models. If they had warm lighting, they're starting to reach into the other territories of other devices they make. So unfortunately, that's just the way it is. While we have the top down, we have Bluetooth, we have airplane mode, sync, all settings, dark mode, we have flight mode, sync, Wi-Fi, and dark mode. And what am I missing here? Oh yeah, the settings. So settings is here and task manager is not. So they each almost have each other's things. And if you go to the settings, we'll go over here really quick, we'll see that we have some device options. Now, if you go to device options and say the closest thing would be maybe maintenance, you have device info, things like that. We're not going to go through every single one of these settings because there are a lot of them. But if you go to personalize, you'll see we have G sensor, LED indication, key mapping. Yes, you can actually map the power button at the bottom. I've actually never seen that on any device. You can choose what you want the short press and the long press to do. You can make them each do different things, double press, sorry. There's a ton of things you can assign to that. It's a very odd choice to choose the bottom power button aside from any buttons that they don't have anymore, but it's still pretty nice to have that. You have logos, you can do boot logo, power off logo, you can change all that. You have widget settings, you can alter some of that. So there's a lot more things you can change on here, whereas on the Kindle, it's very simple. You have show covers on lock screen, brightness, text size, and then you have not really too much outside of that. There's not really anything you can customize. It doesn't have any key mappable buttons or anything like that. It's not the Kindle app, so you don't use the volume buttons as page turns because it doesn't have any. So it's very simplistic and to the point. They don't want you changing much to this unit. They just really want you to leave it alone. And of course you have dark mode on both, and it's fine. They're not really any different. They don't have any blacker blacks or anything like that. They're pretty much exactly on par. Remember, if you are just joining the e-reader world, 99.9% of e-paper screens come from one source. That's eink Taiwan. So this 6-inch panel is going to be the same as this 6-inch panel, is going to be the same as this 6-inch panel. From there, you can do things like put screen protectors and different sealants on top of the EPD, the electronic paper display. But when you put them in the device, they really just act basically the same. Now, something the Kindle doesn't have that the Pocketbook does, and what we can only really show you is this, which is web browser and Goodreads, are apps. Now, these aren't apps in the traditional sense like you would think a smartphone would have with a bunch of different applications. That's not what we're looking at here, but it does have applications. You do have chess, Klondike, Scribble, Sudoku, and you have dictionary and gallery and photo frame and hey, I can never pronounce that. We'll show you that in a second. And calculator. And you might be saying, well, I'm not buying an e-reader for a calculator. You're 200% correct, but it's kind of nice to have these little lifestyle solution things. If I wanted to scribble something on a Kindle and change some of the grayscales and erase certain things, you can't do that because this has it. Are you going to use it every day? Probably not, but it's kind of nice that it's there, because if you needed to jot something down and you need to say, oh, your phone number, okay, 555213, like that, you at least have the option to do it. And I always felt that that was a little bit of a pleasantry that Pocketbook gave you to really get that done. You even have Dropbox integration on here, and you don't have any of that on the Kindle, and you can't really add anything to it. You do have Goodreads, which is the biggest social media site in the world that is in its own class, which is book editorials and reviews. This is the biggest one, and it's not saying too much because, I mean, it's not social media in the general scope of being able to scroll through people's stories and whatnot, but that's not what it's for. But you do see we have a whopping 979 friends. Thank you guys so much for friending up on Goodreads. So here you can see what people are reading, what they have read, what they think about it, etc. So they each have their own kind of spin on that delivery. Furthermore, Pocketbook allows you in full international friendly fashion, because they are one of the most international friendly companies, bar none. They give you a online library book borrowing service. We're not going to show you any more than this because you can check the reviews out, but what this is you can actually log in to various libraries from around the world and borrow books. Now, content delivery. How do we get our content? Well, Amazon has Pocketbook beat 12 times over because you cannot compete with the Amazon store. So when you go to the store, there you go. You have it's not even close. Millions upon millions upon millions of books on Amazon. Amazon started off as a book store first and foremost, then moved into general consumer products. But Amazon has everything. They have the newest, they have the latest New York best time sellers. I mean, it's insanity what they have on Amazon in terms of book selection. Pocketbook has some decent stuff and actually goes way steps further than Onyx and Bigme and iReader and Readmoo and a lot of other manufacturers. However, they just don't have the same level of books as Amazon does, but it is really nice all the same, and you don't have to worry about region restrictions and whatnot because the Amazon Kindle store is going to kind of be different based off of where you are registered to. So if you click something, it's going to be a different experience every single time, but Pocketbook's going to be the international hub that it is, and you can download things straight like that. And this is the purchase decision. You have sample, you have buy, you have sample. It's really the same thing. And if you scroll down, you have a lot more of the information, the reviews, and everything else under one roof. So it really is just a matter of sheer amount. The quantity is so much higher on Amazon, whereas subjectively, the quality could be better on both. We don't know what your likes and dislikes are, so if you are looking for kind of a North Americanized flavor, and to a further extent, Japan, Singapore, wherever you're located and wherever you're registered to, Amazon should more often than not be for you, but Pocketbook is a very close second when it comes to content delivery. Now, something you get on a Pocketbook is when you get a Pocketbook, when you buy this, it is preloaded with almost 100 books, which is actually very generous. Not a lot of manufacturers even care enough to give you books. On the Amazon, you don't get any books. It's a blank slate. You have to log into your account and then start downloading things, and from there it'll show up, and everything you've ever had will show up here if you download them, but you would have initially had to get them first, whereas Pocketbook at least gets you started with some light content. And it's not just international books, it is English books and whatnot. So they do give you a starting off point, because for a lot of people, they honestly don't know where to get their books. But for now, let's dive into an actual book and see how they look. Are we going to be able to get the same font? You know what? That's actually a really good question, because I don't even know. Let's look it out. So we have font, we have settings, and we have, let's go to the actual font. Okay, what can we find here in terms of the overall names of everything? Pocketbook has far more. In fact, it's actually really interesting. This small quadrant, this fifth of the screen, actually goes into an A2 mode to give you fluid movement and inertia. So if you swipe it, it actually goes and it slows down on its own like that. Are we able to actually match these? Do we have Helvetica or Futura? I wonder. Let's see here. Actually, there's not one overlapping font, so that's really interesting. If you pinch and zoom, you do get the font changes on both of these, and it will update accordingly. Or you can do what we just showed you and press the middles on both of these. You get settings on both. You get different ways to change your margin, different ways to change your line spacing, and pretty much they mimic each other in that regard. They're just displayed a little bit differently. And you have some light reading settings as well, bold, italicize, what have you. Now, they can do some further things utilizing the use of the internet, is look up on Google, dictionary definition, highlight, etc. Now, Kindle takes it a little bit further in that you can get any book you want in any language you want, and you can box any amount of space. Go here, click translation, and it translates it. And you know what? Does it really well. You can go from English to simplified Chinese in a second, and it automatically translates everything. And that's really nice, because what that means is it breaks down barriers. It really does, because the Pocketbook can't do live translation as it stands. You have some ways to do translation like that, but it won't do the entire thing under the translation. Pocketbook will allow you to translate individual words, and they do it quite nicely. They give you all the translations. You can change the dictionary in which you want to translate. You can click on various parts of this and get way more from and tos, and you can add new dictionaries. So they do get you kind of taken care of from that perspective. You just can't box a huge range and do it all in one shot. Now, aside from that, what can we do with this? We can do page turns. The Kindle's just going to be a little bit quicker because they have really refined their page turning speed over the years. Pocketbook is really, it's hard to measure, because if you didn't see the Kindle and you just had this, you'd be like, oh wow, yeah, this is really good. And then you put that off to the side and you get the Kindle and you say, oh yeah, this is really good. You would never really be able to draw parallels between it unless you're splitting hairs and facing them off in a battle royale like we are, because that's what we do. We need to see which one's quicker, and head to head, we would say the Kindle's a little bit quicker, and it doesn't refresh nearly as much as the Pocketbook. And you do some different things like rotate, notes, and dictionary, and you can save your top right corner to do your bookmarks, and it'll match your location and things like that. So when it comes to the reading experience, both of these are fine. They can both be used one-handed. You can swipe, you can tap, same as this one. They both look great too, because they're not using color. They both look phenomenal. There's really no differences between the actual appearance whatsoever, and you see that gyroscope, the G sensor, which you can turn off, is acting away there. The blacks are blacks, the whites are amazing, the contrast is great, and the dead space here is completely absent of any sort of shade of color. They're both pretty much on par when it comes to the delivery of the visuals. It's just different in terms of the overall operating system and the UI elements that the user can choose. Finally, in terms of price, these two devices are essentially identical. Amazon.com is $129.99, and this is about 110 euros, which ends up being, with today's conversion, 131.06 or something. So they're pretty much the exact same price. It's just going to come down to where you live, what kind of taxes, what kind of VAT, what kind of additional fees you're going to have to pay, and the device delivery time, if that is something of concern. But the screens are basically identical. They both have roughly the same dimensions overall. They're roughly almost bang on the same size, they're bang on the same thickness. It's really just a matter of what company you want to deal with, because you really can't go wrong with either one. See you on the next one.